Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the declining birth rates in the West. Earlier on today, I saw a vid by YouTuber Ramsey Paul. I like his short vids actually, or many of them, and I'd been umming and ahhing about doing a vid on this anyway, so it's kind of brought it forward a bit. But have a look at his video, by the way, Ramsey Paul. He draws a parallel saying that the Roman Empire in the earlier days of the reign of Augustus Caesar brought out a law or to attempt to encourage Romans to procreate more. There's a bit of a backstory to this. Rome had been through like 60 to 70 years of civil war where no one knew what was going on, and it was, a time of great uncertainty. Business was bad. There was a whole lot of things. Taxation was heavy. The state, as the power changed hands back and forth. The state was making appropriating citizens' wealth arbitrarily, and it was a bad time. So understandably, people were reluctant to have children. Secondly, because it was a civil war, there were endless battles and a very long and very substantial casualty list, lots of deaths. So, and soldiers being away on campaign and so on. So birth rates had declined substantially, but casualties, deaths from warfare and so on had increased substantially. So when the civil war all ended and things calmed down, one of the things that the new administration headed up by Emperor Augustus, one of the things that they wanted to address was, let's get things back to the way they were and get the birth rate up. It was only modestly successful, incidentally, but nonetheless, coming to the birth rates today in the West now, if you look at the Indian subcontinent, there's no problem with procreation there. In Pakistan and India and Bangladesh, they're procreating like crazy. Across a lot of the Middle East, they're procreating. In places like Iran, they're again procreating prodigiously. Sub-Saharan Africa, wow, that procreation is off the charts. You go to places like Afghanistan, and the fertility rate is massive. 6, 7, 8 children per woman, and in the West, it's down to I think 1.6 at the moment as an average, or 1.7. So why have birth rates declined? Why are birth rates declining in the wealthy West, but increasing in the dirt poor basket case of Africa and the Indian subcontinent and Afghanistan, places like that? So let's explore this, because there's a lot of factors that go into it. One of the factors that gets put about a lot is that prosperity causes a decrease in the number of births and the inclination of people to have children, because their primary concern is now having more consumer goods, having like a bigger house, or going on more exotic vacations, driving a nicer motor vehicle or something like that, a consumer sort of lifestyle. And you can't have children are very restrictive. You can't go out to parties. You can't nuke yourself on doing lines of coke while you've got kids to look after, and they're expensive. They cut into the money that you could spend on having a good time and on buying other unnecessary consumer goods. So, but there are other factors. That's one. I don't think that's actually that big a factor. I do concede it's a factor. But I think there are numerous other factors, and among these is the cost of living. So since the high point of births, this is sort of the high point of births was immediately before contraception, like the pill came out. And when the pill was widely available, that's when birth rates fell, suggesting that shotgun weddings and people getting married simply because she got pregnant, things like that. So I don't know how many families formed, or the original nucleus, if you like, of the family was over an illicit sexual encounter that turned into a pregnancy, which then became the shotgun wedding. So, and that was clearly an issue. I've known women who are now in their late 60s, early 70s, and so on, who openly say that they got pregnant to entrap a man. They had a boyfriend and he didn't want to commit to marriage. They thought, well, I'll get him to commit. I'll get pregnant, and that'll get him committed. So they would deliberately orchestrate or do everything they could to orchestrate a pregnancy. So he would then go, oh, okay, well, I better marry you. So there was a lot of that went on. And women who tried that and it didn't work would then either put the baby up for adoption or have an abortion. It was, okay, well, I tried it, didn't work. The value of the pregnancy wasn't because they wanted to have children. The value of the pregnancy was to ensnare the man. And that was widespread. So there's no question that was going on. And a lot of it, by the way. So when I think back, certainly when I was I was sort of became, if you like, aware as a teenager after the baby boom was over. It'd been over by quite some years. I was at the very, very tail end of that baby boom. In fact, probably just a year into the next phase after the baby boom. But nonetheless, my take on this is a whole lot of factors combining. One is the consumer lifestyle, and then there's contraception, that sort of thing. But I think it goes well beyond that. The very concerted attack on the family, the pushing to get women into the workforce, denouncing family life or motherhood as being tantamount to the worst form of slavery imaginable. What utter nonsense! For goodness sakes. Exhorting women to stay in the workforce for longer. It was quite normal for women to leave school. Girls to, very, very few girls actually went on to senior high school, even when I was there. And if they did, they were there just as passengers, not to actually learn anything. And if women went to university, it was as much to score a husband as it was to learn anything. So, and there quite a lot of women I knew that my age would say, hey, I'm going to university because that's where all the smart guys are. Smart guys have higher incomes. I want to marry a man with a higher income, and I go to university for that. But they were studying something like peace studies or some bullshit arts degree that were just starting to appear when I graduated, and they were going there for that. And they would stay for a year or two. If it didn't really work out, then they just leave university. But a lot of girls, the majority of girls, well over 2/3 left school at 15, and they went off to do various apprenticeships, starting to study, say, nurse's assistant or hairdressing, or just to work in a retail store. Their whole idea was just to fill in a bit of time until some guy came along and married them. That's kind of how it was then. Now, whether you think that's good or bad, it was, and it was so, but it was already changing. Even at that, already affirmative action and stuff like that was starting to come in. It was the very early days of it, but you could see the early signs of it there. So encouraging women to say, well, hey, marriage is bullshit. Why do you want to have children? Why don't you go and work, have that shitty job in the retail store and think about the independence and get more parties and meet more guys or something. So there was so I think that's a huge factor. Women working and being exhorted to stay in the workforce longer, the denigration of marriage, the very the malicious, malevolent maligning of straight men. That's again a huge factor. Men are evil oppressors. They're not your husband or your boyfriend or the father of the kids. They're evil oppressors, neo-Nazis, fascists, right. And a lot of this has been put through the schools and so on. So and through TV programs and movies and all sorts of propaganda delivery systems, encouraging girls to view men as not as husbands and fathers, but as oppressors and Nazis and so on. So I think that's a big factor. Why would you want to have children with a Nazi, for goodness sakes? A fascist, maybe the guy's even Hitler. Did you consider that? And I think those factors have combined. Also, I think the state is intruding more and more in the raising of children. You know your children being subject to climate change propaganda, gay lesbian propaganda, inappropriate sexual propaganda is being put on them, and the power the state has over your children is increasing, and increasing very substantially. So, for example, there was a guy in a car park that I saw. This is a while ago. I was sitting waiting for my wife. Actually, I was sitting waiting in the car. She wanted to do a bit of shopping, and like all wives, I'll only be 5 minutes, and that's going to be 10 million years before she comes back. But so she's off doing that. I'm just sitting in the car park waiting, and there's a little girl who's demanding that she gets the dad buys her some like a chocolate bar or something, or there was some demand she was making. She's a snotty little spoiled brat kid. And he said, well, no, I'm not getting that for you, and we've already talked about this type of thing. And he's quite reasonable. Anyway, she kicks him, and he says, don't do that. And then he gives her not a hard spank, but he gives her a spank on the bum. Now, some politically correct radical activists saw this and decided this was child abuse, called the police. The police couldn't get there quick enough. And next thing you know, the guy's being interrogated, and he's naturally outraged by this. So he's in handcuffs, and they drag him off. Social worker, has to take care of the kid. All this drama over, I want a chocolate bar, Dad, and if you don't get it, I'm going to be a spiteful little brat, and that leads to Dad being dragged away in handcuffs. I mean, you couldn't make something like that up. But that sort of level of state intrusion. And there's propaganda campaigns that go around the police. Did you know that all straight white men are evil, fascist, Nazi oppressors of little children? They tear the little children to pieces. They kill the women, Nazis, Hitler. And the very, a lot of police are very simple people, and they're plied with this propaganda, and so it's a hysterical ideological. Oh no, a man oppressing children. It's 3 squad cars, SWAT team, helicopters, and so it's a thing of maximum drama. And they're doing something socially virtuous, dragging that guy for handcuffs. It's nothing to do with the chocolate bar and the kid. This is fighting back against the fucking oppression of the fucking Nazis. So they're doing good shit. So you look at that, and then you go through the divorce system where any woman can leave any man for any reason or no reason. Doesn't have to be a reason. And even if she's contributed nothing to the relationship, not a penny, she can still walk away with 50% for her and typically 10 to 15% for each child. So, and then get child support for up to until the youngest kid turns 25. Maybe alimony on top of that if the guy's on a good wage and a steady income earner. And the way they evaluate this is they say, well, this guy's never been unemployed and he makes an above average wage. Hey, we can screw the fuck out of him forever. And so in terms of a contract, if you will, the contract guarantee, assuming the guy's got any money, the contract guarantees the woman, wealth and riches, but guarantees the guy, poverty and being financially gang raped by the state and the apparatus of the state. So many men are reluctant. I know men have been married once and they go, nah, never again. And if they do have a relationship, they're certainly never going to have children. Children is the big trigger for the big payouts, but they're never going to have children. And so I think all of those factors combined. Now, the other thing, and this is a big fact, a lot of the men that I know, people I know, not just men, people I know look at the future, they look at the mass immigration, they look at how the whole, Western world is changing, how it's being forced on them, that as citizens, they have no say anymore in what goes on, the things that are imposed upon them without their consent. It's not government by consent anymore, which to some extent it was, but it's not now. The citizens, the consent of the citizens is not required even slightly. So all these things are imposed on Western citizens. Again, the mass migration, the gay lesbian propaganda in schools. You could just go with the climate change nonsense. It's all imposed. None of it is with the consent of the citizens. And so, people are looking into the future saying, wow, I'm not sure I want to bring kids into a world like this where they'll become, just universal basic income flunky slave stooges for the globalist elites. Why would I want to bring a kid into that sort of life? So they're saying, well, no, I don't want to have any children. So there's a lot of couples I know that have no children. They could have children. They're wealthy enough to have children. Maybe both of them have got decent jobs, or he's got a decent job, but they don't want to have children because they see the future as being so jaundiced. Now you get a lot, especially the women who are affected by this climate change propaganda insanity. They say, well, why would I want to have a kid if the world's going to end due to climate change tomorrow? So you get those activists, those low IQ activist women, and they're saying they won't have children. So there's a whole lot of factors are combining. Uncertainty and lack of faith, lack of confidence in the future is a very big one. Lack of confidence in the marriage contract. The marriage contract isn't worth a pinch of shit, and heavily favours one party over another. So for men, it's a super high risk undertaking, and one that fewer and fewer men are prepared to undertake. The other thing, and I'll make this quite clear, is the cost of living. It's just relatively much more expensive to have children than it once was. If you look at the high point of having children, in the 60s, before, even after contraception came in 1970, still a lot of people having children. And there was a great deal more confidence in the future then, even though it was the Cold War and talk about nuclear Armageddon, there was still a lot of confidence in the world then that having children was fine, and you wanted to have children. So now we can look at other societies, for example, Africa, where you get some places 50% mortality rates. So there, it's ingrained into their DNA. Look, you have as many children as you can, because half of them are going to fucking die before they're 2 years old. So with increasing medical care, the mortality rate's declining, but the procreation rate stays, which shows the explosion, or demonstrates and gives reason for the explosion in birth rates there. But those are the reasons why I think, if someone, I'm too old to have children now, but well, I suppose I could, but I wouldn't have children today. I have so little faith in the future that I wouldn't have children today if I was younger. You're in Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.